I've tried to record this video a few times, but I always get super emotional. It's a hard topic for me to talk about. Writing is much easier for me than talking. So I'm gonna try to get through this video without being a complete blubbering mess. I did bring my tissues, just in case. So I'm Veronica, this is my channel, obviously. I have a 5-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old daughter, Hazel and Vila. My oldest, Hazel, was diagnosed with cancer last year. She was diagnosed with leukemia, ALL, and when she was diagnosed, they put her in the high risk category. So with leukemia, there's not stages like a lot of other cancers. With leukemia, it's all a risk factor because leukemia is cancer in the blood. And blood is throughout your entire body. So there's no way to really put a stage on it, but there is risks. So there is standard risk, there's low risk, there's standard risk, there's high risk, and there is very high risk. Hazel was diagnosed December 28th of 2017. So I thought I would talk about how we found out that she had cancer and all of the symptoms leading up to it. Sorry, it's so hard for me to look at the camera because this really is so hard for me to talk about. So sorry. Okay. I will just start from the beginning. So December 28th last year, she was 4 years old and she still is super energetic. She was then too. And I mean, like, this girl, you could, like, her amount of energy is insane. So to kind of give you an idea, even through chemotherapy, which she is still on, by the way, but during like the hardest rounds of chemotherapy, she would literally vomit and then wipe her face and then go back to dancing and singing and playing. So her energy level has always been incredible, always been really high. So recognizing her symptoms because she has such high energy was one of the things that made it so difficult for me as a mom. So a few weeks before she was diagnosed, she started complaining of wrist pain. That was the first thing that I really can remember. Now this was probably a month before she was diagnosed, maybe. And she didn't complain about it long, maybe like once or twice during the day. And she just said that it would hurt to like roll her wrist. And so I figured, and it was usually in the morning when she woke up. So I figured that maybe she had fallen asleep like on her wrist somehow, like we so often do. And she only complained about it, like I said, just a few times and maybe only 4 days, if that. So I kind of actually forgot about that symptom. Sorry, the sun is coming out even more so. Fast forward a week, she had a headache and she started to get a little bit paler too. But I mean, it's winter. So during the summer, we were in the sun all the time and playing. We did a lot of vacations over the summer. So she was pretty tan. So I just figured her getting paler was due to it being winter and getting colder and us not being outside as often. But she was getting paler. The next thing that we really kind of noticed, aside from the headaches, was a fever. Not a big fever. It wasn't 101 or 102. A lot of times it didn't even hit 100. And sometimes she didn't have a fever at all. Usually what would happen is during the day, She would have a fever of maybe 99, and then at night, before she would go to sleep, it would hit about 99.8 to 99.9. Sometimes it would hit 100, but not often. And this went on for about 3 to 4 days before I really started to get uncomfortable with it. And then we took her into the doctor. Now, before that, I should mention too, she had bruising, and a lot of it. It was to the point where I was vocalizing my concern about her bruising. And because she was so active, I mean, like, she would get to the top of this stairwell right here and jump all the way down, kind of active. That's her. She's completely fearless. She'd put the mat down there and then she would just jump. And sometimes she would land on her knees or her legs or her arm, whatever. And she would just get right back up and do it all over again. And so my husband, friends, family, everybody that I would say, like, hey, like, are these bruises? Like, do you notice them? It would always come down to, well, she's a really active 4-year-old. I remember even bringing it up to one of her friends' moms at school, and they're just like, well, I mean, you know Hazel. Like, she's jumping and running into things all the time. So that was kind of a concern in the back of my mind, but it wasn't anybody else's concern. And so I wanted to brush it off, but it kept nagging me for a long time. So anyways, we took her into the doctor because we were primarily concerned about the fever and then the headaches too. So they said that she had a ear infection. So they gave us a 10-day antibiotic and sent us on our way. Now, what I didn't know then, what I know now, is that the majority of kids who have cancer are misdiagnosed at least once before they're diagnosed with cancer. Sorry, that sun is like right there. Anyways, so they gave us the antibiotic, amoxicillin, I think is what it was, just the pink liquid. They said, hey, if it's not gone in 10 days, bring her back. She had also started to have leg pain. And not like, I don't know, it was like some days she was totally fine and she'd walk and she'd run and she'd jump. And then there would be moments where she would start to scoot on her butt. And we're like, Hazel, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you scooting on your butt? She's like, my leg hurts. So I kind of thought maybe the leg pain was due to body aches from the fever. I didn't really know. And I mean, it was hard to even, it was hard because she was so active. She would complain about leg pain and then beg to go to Kid Fit. And during Kid Fit, she'd still be running and jumping. Leg pain is one of the biggest, not one of the biggest, but it's a pretty big symptom to leukemia. And I didn't know. Sorry. I didn't know leg pain was a symptom to leukemia, because what happens is the leukemia cells start to multiply and divide in the bone marrow, because that's where our blood cells are. That's where our blood cells come from. And that's where our leukemia cells come from. Our Hazel's leukemia cells came from. And your bones start to hurt because your bone marrow is so full of these horrible cells, and they start to basically overflow out of the bones into the rest of the body. And that's where the leg pain was coming from. I remember the night before Christmas, so Christmas Eve, she's like, Mom, my leg really hurts. And she crawled to the stairs right over here and started to crawl up the stairs, and then I carried her to her bed. And I remember being really worried at that point. And I said, like, in my head, like, hey, like, if it gets any worse or if it's like this tomorrow, I'm gonna take her into the ER, even though it was Christmas Day. So the next day, Christmas, she wakes up, runs down the stairs, literally jumping in front of the presents, like, Santa came, Santa came, Santa came. I'm like, Hazel, does your leg hurt? No, like, Santa came. So she's like, okay, like, great, her leg doesn't hurt. Anyways, fast forward back to where I was before. Sorry, this is so scattered. It's just, it's everywhere in my head. I'm trying to piece it all together again. So we were giving her the antibiotics, and again, she was running, playing, everything, totally her normal self. Her headaches went away, but her fever didn't. I didn't wait the full 10 days. I only waited just a few, and something didn't feel right. I still didn't like the bruising. I still didn't love that her leg would hurt off and on. So I took her into a different doctor, and I brought up all of my concerns. And I told her, listen, like, they said that she had an ear infection a few days ago. We've been giving her the antibiotics, but it doesn't seem to work. And I have so many other concerns that are completely unrelated, so I thought. And I just started naming them off. And this doctor, as I started naming them off, said, okay, there's the fevers. And she said, how high do the fevers get? And I said, never too high, which is why it's so hard to They never got too high, and she always had energy, which is why we kind of feel silly bringing her back in. So when I was talking to her, this new doctor, Dr. Vargo, she said, okay, well, you said you have other concerns. What is it? I said, we've never laid a hand on our child. But she has so many bruises that I've even questioned bringing it up because I didn't want you to think that we hurt her. So she had me take off her pants and her shirt, and she had bruising all up and down her arms. She had fallen on the ice, literally right before we went to the appointment, like on our way to the car, she had fallen on the ice. And not bad, like she literally like got back up, like didn't hurt her. And she had a massive bruise. Like, it had seriously looked like her arm was broken or something. It was terrible. And her legs were covered in them. And I said, a lot of people think that she's just really active, and she is, but I don't like the bruising. And she just kind of looked over them, and I could see her facial expressions change from very optimistic ear infection to something else. She said, what else are you concerned about? I said, it's probably completely unrelated to everything, but she's also been limping. She said that her leg hurts. And she said, does anything else hurt? And I said, well, no, just her leg. But before her leg, her wrist was hurting a few weeks ago, and I figured that it was just her sleeping on it weird, and it hasn't hurt since. And I figured the leg pain is from the fever. or maybe even growing pains. And she lays Hazel down and she starts to feel her stomach. And she said, okay, her liver seems to be a little enlarged. I said, okay, what's that mean? She didn't really say anything. She said, what about nosebleeds, anything like that? And I said, well, she had one 2 days ago, but I mean, it's cold. Figured it was dry air. Gosh, I'm sorry. She says, is she paler than normal? And I said, well, she's paler than she was this summer, but I mean, we were out in the sun. She had bags under her eyes, dark bags. It's hard for me to talk about and think about because every single symptom that she had was textbook leukemia. And I had absolutely no idea. So what she said, listen, I want you to go home and I want you to pack your bags quickly and go straight to Primary Children's Hospital. I'm like, why? She's like, just go home and do it. I was like, I'm not going anywhere until you tell me why. Like, what do you think my kid has? She says, well, I can run some blood work here, but they're just gonna redo it there. So rather than poking her multiple times in the next hour, just go. And I said, well, what do you think she has? Like, tell me. And she said, well, I think it could be one of two things. One was a blood disorder, which is low platelets. It's TPI or TPN, TP something. It could, I don't even know. Maybe it wasn't even a T something. But she said, or the other thing that I'm concerned about is potentially leukemia. And she says, I am praying that it's not leukemia. She said, but you need to go to the hospital. And when she was telling me this, Hazel was literally running around the room on the stool. And I looked at her and I literally said, there's no way in hell my kid has leukemia. It doesn't happen to people like me, right? Like, how naive is that? You see commercials or billboards, or you hear about kids who have cancer, but it's never you. It's never your kid or your life until it is. So I called my husband as we were getting in the car and I said, hey babe, her doctor said that we need to pack our bags and go to Primary Children's. Of course, he's like, why the hell would we do that? And I said, well, she thinks she potentially could have leukemia. Or she's worried about leukemia or something else. I can't remember what it is. It's something else. And he's just like, what? So he was really confused and I was really confused. And if I'm being completely honest, I didn't even really know what leukemia was. I just knew that it was cancer. How naive is that? I didn't even know what it was. So we came home, packed our bags, and I mean, like, when I say we packed our bags, we packed like PJs, like, and warm blankets, just in case we were in the ER overnight. Like, I didn't know what to expect. Anyways, we go to the hospital with my then 1-month-old daughter, Viola. We go there, we are there for hours. They do blood work. And sure enough, December 28th, 2017 was one of the worst days of our lives. I say one of because we've almost lost Hazel multiple times after that day. But that was the day that our world completely flipped upside down. The reason why I'm doing this video is because I want people to know what to look for. And I want people to know childhood cancer, it is not rare. And it can happen to anyone. It can happen to anyone. Even you. Even your kid or your grandkids. I honestly pray every single night that people will never know the pain that us parents feel when your child is diagnosed with cancer. She was 4 years old when she was diagnosed with cancer. She's 5 now and doing well. So there is hope. She still has a little over a year and a half of treatment left, but she is doing good. But 1 out of every 285 kids are diagnosed with cancer, and the majority of those kids are misdiagnosed at least once before they are diagnosed with cancer. And oftentimes, like Hazel, by the time they are diagnosed, the cancer has already spread to other parts of their body. With Hazel, the leukemia had already spread to her spinal fluid. And had I known all of the symptoms, maybe, just maybe, we could have caught it earlier. That's one of my guilts, and I know I can't put that on myself because I simply didn't know. I often say I was ignorant and naive. They say ignorance is bliss, and oh, it is so bliss. I never knew this world of childhood cancer, and I wish I didn't, but because I do my best to spread awareness. So, those are the symptoms that Hazel had leading up to her diagnosis. Leg pain or bone pain. She was pale. She bruised easily because she was low on platelets. She had fevers, and she was tired, even though she fought it. I remember her taking a nap, and I was on Instagram, and I said on Instagram, "Holy cow, Hazel fell asleep on the floor. This never happens." I remember saying that. I remember that video. And I didn't know. So I hope that this maybe can shed some light, maybe educate you. I'm sorry I'm a blubbering mess. I was diagnosed with PTSD not long ago, and talking about the things that I avoid the most is something that my therapist has said will help me overcome PTSD. So this was one of my things that I've been avoiding talking about because it is painful, and it was a year ago, coming up in December. So anyways, most importantly, if you have a bad feeling or something doesn't seem right, trust your gut. It doesn't hurt to go and see a doctor. Just trust your gut on everything, really. So yes, those were her symptoms: leg pain, fevers, bruising. Yeah, I can't even remember everything I just talked about. Sorry, this is really long and it was difficult, but there you have it. Thank you so much for watching and supporting me and my family, and watching us, for all of my Instagram followers, and watching us and supporting us through Hazel's journey to beating the crap out of cancer. Because we all know she is so freaking tough. And I love her so much. She's my hero. Same with Violet, because she brings us so much peace and joy through all this. Anyways, I'm dragging on now. Like this video if you like it. I don't even know. Okay, I'm gonna go. But thank you so much. And again, in your spare time, not again, I haven't even said it, but donate blood, because Hazel would not be here today without selfless blood donors. She has had countless blood transfusions, platelet transfusions, and plasma transfusions. More blood and plasma than anything, or blood and platelets than anything. So thank you if you are a donor. You are literally saving lives. Who knows, maybe you even saved my Hazel the multiple times, hundreds. I'd say she's had hundreds of transfusions. So thank you for donating. You can get on to bethematch.com and or .org and become a bone marrow donor, and also save so many people's, potentially save somebody else's life through being a bone marrow donor. Yes. And also, if you spread awareness, whether it's sharing this video or posting facts on childhood cancer, or even just the fact that childhood cancer isn't rare, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna go now because I'm a mess. Thank you for watching. Bye.